Welcome back inside the Auburn film room for Week 11. I'm Lauren Sisler. This is Cole Cubelic. And Cole, let's look back at Auburn's game against Vanderbilt. Certainly not what we expected out of Auburn. What would you say some of the biggest attributing factors to that 23-16 win were for Auburn?
Well, you had a lot to look forward to, a lot to be excited about. You come out in the top 10 of the inaugural college football playoff rankings. But you have a morning game at home. I always say that almost neutralizes home field advantage. It's a bit of an advantage to the visiting team because you're traveling. When you go on the road, Lauren, your schedule is going to be different. Things are going to change. You pack your bag, you get on a bus, you get on a plane, you're going to a hotel, a different hotel that you're not in like you are normally for home games. Everything's different. So to wake up early and play a game sort of just falls right along with that. To go to the normal hotel in Montgomery that you go to come back and play a home game, yet have to get up at 5:30, maybe even 6 o'clock, that feels like punishment for a game day. So that's some of the reasons that I feel teams struggle to get up for these early games. This is an opponent that Auburn was favored to beat. A lot of people, I'm sure, telling them that they were going to be able to handle this game. So I think you compile all of those in with the fact that Derek Mason's a solid defensive mind. They have a great second level of their defense. It's one thing that I think we sort of overlooked in that the big reason Auburn had success the 4 or 5 weeks prior to this, against Arkansas, against Ole Miss, against Louisiana Monroe, against Mississippi State, were the lack of quality second-level defenders. Some of those teams have pretty good defensive linemen. Most of those teams are inept at linebacker this year. They're just not getting great linebacker play. It's one thing that really opened things up for Auburn. This was a different look, a three-man front, more active linebackers that are running around, trying to create space and be able to make plays. And I think it gave Auburn's offense a little bit of a headache.
I think you can also point to health being a contributing factor. Shaun White obviously not able to play, did not start that game. John Franklin III, we're going to show a couple plays here. What did you see from him? What stood out to you most, good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, as we know, he's dynamic, and he brings a different aspect to the backfield. But consistency is where we're going to see him struggle. Now, one thing that you like about having John Franklin III in your backfield is if you have a team that's going to run a twist, tackle out, defensive end is going to come back inside, this tackle better hurry and get contained, and he better win outside contain to try and keep John Franklin in the pocket. That's not going to happen here, and you see just how quickly he can escape the pocket there. Sees contain break down, boom, he's out of the pocket, 12, 15-yard run by John Franklin III. So that fast, he can get out of the pocket, hurt you, and make things happen. Then, of course, the zone read comes into play. If you want to try and jump this play and play your defensive ends tight, or even have them sort of scrape down inside to take away the run with Pettway that's been so successful this year, all he has to do is read that, keep it, and he can burn you to the outside. You see right there, and we've talked about this before, Lauren, the movement up front. Watch the movement here by the Auburn offensive line and just how it backs up into the linebacker and really forces almost an impossible read right here because he's going to have not only gap but contain on the outside. That movement right there really makes things difficult as John Franklin III just shows you some of his speed to the outside. So he's a guy who can hurt you in multiple ways. He gives you big play threats, but he's just not consistent through the air enough, especially in the intermediate passing game. He's got the arm to push the ball down the field, and that's great. But you have to find a way on 2nd and 5, 3rd and 4, when defenses are giving you easy throws to make them pay.
And I think when you look at this team, especially in the first half of that football game, out of sync, out of rhythm without Shaun White in the game, comes in the second half. What did you see from him? I know the injury, the shoulder, was that a concern? Did you see that he was a little bit less consistent because of that shoulder injury?
Consistency may be not an issue, but you saw, it felt to me like he was kind of short-arming his throws a little bit, maybe not winding up as much as he did previously. Here you'll see just a little hitch route. Doesn't have much of a problem with that, but this is one, when he's throwing this hitch out with his body, you can imagine, so he's kind of throwing to the left, so he can utilize all of his body to sort of pull that ball over to the left. We're going to see a totally different throw here when he has to throw to the open side of his body, and you can see where he kind of short arms this ball, and he doesn't have as much of his body weight to get into this throw. I just feel like it looks like he's really sort of short arming that pass. And to me, he didn't look healthy. I know there's been some issues there and some question marks there, but this will be another good look at it. I just feel like he kind of short arms that ball and doesn't get near the velocity. That's not a ball that you need a lot of arc on. You don't have to put a lot of air into that football. Receiver's open. I feel like the normal Shaun White, the Shaun White that we've seen in previous weeks, he delivers a much flatter football on that route.
You talk about Vanderbilt's defense earlier, talking about their offense and Auburn's defense going up against them. Kind of mirrored that a little bit of the Ole Miss game. Ole Miss obviously getting some bigger explosive plays, but some of these slant routes that kind of ate away some yardage and obviously put Vanderbilt in scoring position.
I didn't think the Vanderbilt offensive line would be able to hold up against the Auburn defensive line. Andy Ludwig, their offensive coordinator, did a really nice job of going multiple tight end sets, keeping running backs in on protection, slide or gap protection, where guys are just basically taking one step left, one step right, quick protection, and not asking them to do a whole lot as far as 5 to 7 step drop and winning one-on-ones and pass protection. Now, what comes with that, you better get rid of the football quickly. Because if you're going to go quick protection, you're leaving a weakness on one side or the other that if a defense finds a way to attack, they're going to be in the backfield getting hits on your quarterback. But Kyle Shermer just had an excellent game. If you're going to go with basically back-end protection and not want to give up big plays, usually you're giving up some things underneath. I thought Auburn went a lot of zone coverage. Auburn played off coverage, and Andy Ludwig took advantage of it early. Kyle Shermer was very accurate. You can see some of the pressure here. It's not as though the Auburn defensive line weren't getting anything. I mean, you see some guys winning some battle against this Vanderbilt offensive line. Watch the right side of this line. If this is elongated protection, I mean, they're taking multiple guys out. They're going to be getting pressure, but the ball's out too quick. And they made the adjustments in the second half, rolled the coverage up a little bit. Then you had to see Vanderbilt go to more 5 and 7 step drop late. That's where the last few series of the game, Carl Lawson really showed off the edge, the kind of player that he can be, multiple pressures, and had 2 sacks, I think, on the last 3 drives. So it was a nice game plan going in for Vanderbilt. Really nice adjustment for Kevin Steele at the half.
I want to go back to the injuries. This is the time of year when injuries play a big role on this team. Obviously, Shaun White, Cam Pettway, another guy. How different is this team without Cam Pettway, and what adjustments need to be made, especially if he's not going to play this weekend against Georgia?
Shaun White, not 100%, is a much bigger deal than Cam Pettway, in my opinion. You look at what Kerryon Johnson did early in the season. We've seen Cam Martin carry the football a little bit. Stanton Truett's done some really nice things in this Auburn backfield. So you have some options, and I think Chandler Cox is still sitting there as a guy who got a few carries in the spring game, had a long run, in an emergency situation could move to tailback and probably carry the football a little bit and be just fine there. Now, none of those guys are going to be the north-south physical runner that Kamryn Pettway has been this fall. So is he a significant loss? Yes, just based on the production that he's already shown he can get you. But for me, Shaun White is a much more valuable piece of this offense because he brings balance. We saw it here in some of the clips that we watched. He's a guy that forces defense to play you on the back end, play your intermediate throws. So if you spread the offense out, we've talked about Rhett Lashley doing a nice job here in the second half of the season he forces you to respect that and honor that. Now, he doesn't give you the running ability, but he has a good understanding of the offense to go tempo at times when he needs to. I think he gets them checked into the right place at certain times and knows when to at least put the football down and run for 4, 8, 6 yards, even though it's not a huge play, but take the free yards that the defense is giving him and force him to play you straight up.